I want to give a special thanks to my friends at the Center for Fundamental Rights and their Director General, Miklos Santho, for their hospitality, their generosity, and all the hard work that they've been putting in to this conference. And I know it's a lot of hard work, and you're doing great work bringing together many of the great minds of the conservative populist movement, not just in Europe, but the world over. And the fact that this conference continues to grow is a testament to the fantastic work of the Center and its Director General. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to start off by saying last year, I also had the honor to speak at the inaugural CPACHungary and the need for an American Orbanism. The left-wing press predictably ridiculed my statement. How could I, an America First populist, positively talk about the policies of another nation? This is emblematic of leftist thinking, even as they beg for America to import Brussels-driven policies that destroy the liberties of their own citizens. They assert that an uncouth populist such as myself could never laud Hungary for its success in defending Western civilization, promoting law and order, repelling hostile foreign NGOs, preserving its national sovereignty, combating the extreme LGBTQ agenda, and all the while raising the national birth rate. Revolting hypocrisy is the true hallmark of the left. Furthermore, the left-wing rag, The Nation, castigated me for promoting a so-called socialism of fools. They claimed that because I dared to step outside the bounds of ideological conformity constructed by the corrupt uniparty system that dominates the American body politic, that I was appropriating popular socialist ideals to dog whistle evil, scary, right-wing agenda of supposed fascism, racism, and a myriad of other forms of cartoon-esque villainy. But the global elite's hatred of all things populism is nothing new. It's historical and it is bipartisan. But the left-wing dominated press, writ large, refuses to acknowledge a fundamental truth, that the populist conservative movement is the only vehicle that can truly counter the ongoing decline of Western civilization. Because I will give the left credit. The leftists sometimes diagnose problems correctly, but their purported solutions will never resolve them. In fact, actions belie the claim that leftists really care about the issues at all. The American version of Hungary's dollar left just wants their paycheck from George Soros or whatever other billionaire they can find, and they happily abandon their principles to get it. Take Senator Bernie Sanders, for example. He presented himself as a left-wing populist just looking out for the little guy. But on close inspection, Sanders' populism was a false populism. He was the epitome of the American dollar left. He sold out and crushed the dreams of his supporters just as much as the DNC crushed his own chances of becoming president both in 2016 and in 2020. The establishment wants to co-opt populist energy, whether it's on the left or on the right, whether it's with Bernie Sanders or whether it's with President Donald J. Trump. Those who are truly alert to the late hour of our republic have since politically realigned, and more will continue to do so. Yet others follow the dollar, as Bernie did, and betray any claim to an authentic anti-establishment populism. This is why the American dollar left pushed for policies such as student loan bailouts for people in women's studies majors or basket weaving or African poetry, I really don't know. But these are not the wishes and demands of a hardworking and middle-class Americans. Rather, they are the demands of an aspiring, cosmopolitan professional class, the wannabe elites, if you will, over-credentialed and underemployed, peddled fantasies and delusions about the value of their degree and their societal stock. A real economic populism, on the other hand, reindustrializes the American heartland and reshores jobs so you don't have to go into debt and arrive at a dead end. It taxes the largesse of university endowments and puts them on the loans as co-signers. It ends the grift that has sadly morphed American academia into centers for leftist indoctrination. The left instead determined that the only acceptable course of action was to crush the little guy, to devastate the corner store, and to eviscerate the dreams of working and middle-class Americans by pushing them into crushing destitution and appropriate all the profits and business to the Amazons and Walmarts of the world. Here in Europe, we also see leftists far too ready to crush small business and economic prosperity, whether in the name of a perpetual green revolution or because of the Russian Federation's incursion into Ukraine. Sadly, energy has become a scarce commodity over the past year for much everyday European families and workers. It is a austerity for the masses and an artificial and stolen prosperity for the elites. That is sadly the dichotomy of our age. In Germany, leftists celebrated the closure of their last 3 nuclear power plants last month. To them, nuclear power is anathema. Of course, these leftists probably don't realize that they are going to be replacing clean energy with coal, but the hypocrisy of their position causes them no heartache because they refuse to process information rationally. They are driven instead by raw emotion with no substance to support their positions. Hungary, on the other hand, presents an alternative and pragmatic approach to green energy. By expanding the CPACH's nuclear power plant, Hungary will secure a stable, safe, and green source of energy for decades to come. Those truly concerned about the so-called climate change should be stumbling over themselves to follow in the Hungarian footsteps. The shape-shifting ideology of the left has no principles. A single order from a ruling elite sends a ripple through leftist culture and rewrites their thinking at a moment's notice. Throw a crisis their way, no matter how absurd, and they will fold on a whim. The left is the tool of the globalists, with blind, unwavering conformity to arbitrary edicts from authority. The America First populist movement is the only answer to this sickness. We are the only force with the resolve to stand strong against the propaganda and external forces on behalf of our people. And now we must move forward with a coherent governing ideology. And that ideology is on full display every day under the Orbán government here in Hungary. American populism, like Hungarian Orbanism, begins with a bottom-up transformation of politics within the party apparatus. American conservatism is sadly dead. Its corpse is rotting and putrid, and we should not cry about the failure of this ideology because it conserved nothing except tax cuts for billionaires and corporations who proved all too willing to sell out their country and instill some radical and degenerate transgender drag queen filth as our new national religion, elevating it far above the Christian virtues that made our nation great. Our nation requires a stronger, more versatile populist movement that emanates from our school boards, our city councils, our county commissions, and our state legislatures. We need a movement that considers man as not merely an economic unit, but rather a holistic spiritual being. And we need a Republican Party that is willing to use government power when necessary. Not because we believe in big government or statism, but because we must use every tool at our disposal to dispatch our anti-American opposition. Rejecting the use of state power while the left aggressively leverages it to enforce its agenda means the inevitable destruction of our culture, our nation, and our civilization. So we must be methodical and strategic in how we wield government power. We must abandon the notion that academic precepts of the free market and laissez-faire capitalism are a panacea for all of society's ills. In fact, American conservatives state platitudes about these supposed principles, even as they embrace a policy agenda that corrupts their much vaunted free market in favor of a small group of corporations with outsized impact. They are pro-business, not pro-market. The whole system is fundamentally corrupt, and to resolve this conflict, we must wield government power in the interests of the people. But we also must be realistic about the use of government power. We as Americans must be sober-minded about how much we have lost. The left has effectuated their so-called long march through the institutions with precision. Every institution, from the federal government to the schools, to the church, to the corporate boardroom, has been transformed, infected with a woke dogma, pervasive at all levels of our society. This makes enacting much-needed national reforms very difficult, as President Donald J. Trump learned during his first term, because the institutions are in place to protect the status quo. This is why, when we are in the opposition, as we are at the present, we must embrace localism and decentralization. We must turn the gears of power at the local, county, and state levels to restore our republic. President Abraham Lincoln, the man who essentially founded the Republican Party, said during the American Civil War that a house divided against itself cannot stand. That much is true, and the free people of America will make sure that the house of ill repute that the left has built on the ruins of the once shining city on a hill will not stand. We will throw ourselves on the gears of power. We will foment resistance that would bring ruin upon the leftists who are at war with our national birthright. We will subvert, we will undermine, and we will turn the lower levels of government against the federal machine. This is our mandate, and this is how we accelerate the political realignment that will eventually culminate in an American Orbanism. And while supporting, say, Hungarian-style pro-family policies may make some conservative absolutists who are mentally stuck in 1986 very uncomfortable, we must recognize that their dated talking points will never win over young families who struggle in a system purposefully designed to crush their dreams, happiness, and aspirations. Our restrictions against hostile corporations, whether big pharma, big tech, big media, big banks, big food, or big anything else, will show the people that we stand in their corner and will fight for their rights, whether attacked by government or by corporate overreach. The death of conservatism in America is not a moment for sorrow, but rather an opportunity for those who stand ready, willing, and able to rebuild it into a force that can actually conserve something. It is time for a new generation to take the mantle and orient our ingenuity towards the unified goal of bringing about an American national renewal in the same way Prime Minister Viktor Orban is leading a Hungarian national renewal. This is a time for optimism. This is a time for joy. For many years, we have pined for a way forward, atomized and disjointed, befuddled and moribund, seemingly hopeless to circle the drains in our seemingly inevitable peril. But thanks to the rise of President Donald J. Trump and the model of sound conservative governance presented by Prime Minister Viktor Orban, we have found our national salvation. So now we stand united. We must now proceed boldly towards enacting this blueprint. Thank you very much.